Are you tired of feeling overlooked and underestimated? Hi, I'm Tammy North, the Introverted Executives Coach. If you're an introverted executive or you're ready to rise to senior leadership, but you're struggling to be seen as a high potential, this podcast is for you. Have you ever been told that you are too tactical? Well, maybe you have and maybe you haven't, but if you feel like you're stuck in a place and having a hard time being seen as a high potential for an executive position, you might need to start flexing those strategic muscles a little bit more. The more time you spend taking a strategic view, the easier it'll get until you almost don't want to take any action without considering how it will affect your larger organizational goals. And when you really understand the strategic view of your organization, you'll have an expansion in your mind, one of those where once you realize it, you won't be able to unsee it. And in this case, that's a good thing. You will clearly start asking, if this is the ultimate vision, then why is this team taking the action that seems to be going perpendicular to the vision? You'll start to notice when something's out of alignment, and you'll feel uncomfortable when you notice things that are out of alignment, and you will also feel super empowered when you know you're taking actions fully in alignment with a clear strategic intent. It's my opinion that while you can be too tactical, you really can't be too strategic, especially when you're looking to make a bigger impact in an industry that you love. A couple years prior to me being selected to the current executive level position I'm in now, I interviewed a couple of times for the same exact panel of people for two different positions at a different organization. For the first of those two previous interviews, I talked to the hiring manager after the interview once they made the decision and I wasn't the one selected, and he gave me feedback. He said, "You had a good interview, but you weren't strategic enough." And that was really the only actionable feedback he gave me. Everything else he said was generally positive. So the only thing I had to focus on for a different future interview that I could have was how to improve the way I'm communicating my words to the strategic intent of the organization. So then after that, a different position for the head of strategic policy opened at that same organization, and I read the requirements for that position. I even considered applying, but I decided not to, mostly due to timing. But before I 100% decided not to apply, I read a few books about strategic thinking. A couple of the books I read were Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, The Difference and Why It Matters by Richard Ramelt, and then Vision-Driven Leader by Michael Hyatt. Those are two completely different books, but they have tons of good ideas for thoughts and ways to implement this within your own world. So then after I read those two books, that is around the time that the second of the two previous positions I had interviewed for but didn't get opened. So I was called for a second interview for that next position, and in preparation for that interview, given all the feedback I had received from the same hiring manager, I literally went on a strategic mission. I prepared answers to common interview questions ahead of time. I ensured that they included alignment to the strategic messaging in the organization and the overall industry in general. I read about how the industry was moving at a global scale. I included my own personal strong vision for what I would do if I was given the opportunity to serve this new position. And my strong vision included how to better align that part of the organization with the vision. And then since that was the second time I was interviewing with basically the same exact people, and I had also worked with several of them over the previous 15 years, they knew me and they clearly recognized that I had stepped up my game big time. In fact, at the end of that interview, all three of them gave me highly positive acclamations and affirmations that I had interviewed very well. I mean, literally, at the end of the interview, one of them even said, "Wow, Tammy, that was a great interview." But I did not get that position either. I mean, I will tell you this. They knew that the current executive level position I'm in now was about to open, and they asked me if I was planning on applying for this position, and I told them that it wasn't open for applications yet, so no, I had not applied. So like I said, I did not get that other position. However, I got tons of positive feedback from that interview. That particular panel knew for a fact that I had stepped up my game. So it turns out that the fact they did not select me for that other position was a blessing in disguise, because I will tell you this now, if they had, I would have 100% taken it. And if I had accepted that position, I would have missed out on the opportunity for the executive level position I'm in today. I would have accepted that other position, which was pretty senior, but it wasn't at the executive level because I was pretty sure the odds of me being chosen as the one for this position I'm in now was pretty unlikely, which does highlight an upper limit problem I had for myself at the time. But nevertheless, the hiring manager did call me once they had made their decision for that last interview to tell me that they were very impressed and that it was very close, but they decided to go with a different candidate. And I was a bit bummed, but I kept thinking about them asking me if I was applying for this position, so I was pretty sure that maybe they didn't believe I would actually accept their job, or maybe they didn't believe I would stay if I did accept it. So some of that went into it. But when I found out I didn't get that position, I basically gave me the green light to go all in on the executive application for this position I work in today. And looking back, now that I'm in this current executive level role, I realize that those couple of years where I spent time interviewing for positions out of my comfort zone, listening to their feedback, and then taking active steps to improve myself given their feedback, 100% prepared me for when I did interview for this executive level position I'm in today. I tell you this because it is possible for you to elevate your thinking and to strengthen your strategic thinking muscles. In fact, it's essential. Still, if you've never thought about this before, or if you are getting feedback that you're not strategic enough or that you're too tactical, I want you to know that you do have the power to improve your situation. And as you do, you'll begin to make an exponentially bigger impact, and you will surprise yourself at who you are able to become. I was reading in the Harvard Business Review the other day, and Dr. John Sullivan, who is a professor of management at San Francisco State University, said, "I'm often asked by executives what percentage of employees in a firm should be strategic thinkers, leaders, and innovators. My answer is always the same. You can't have too many. Unfortunately, few companies ever end up with a surplus of this exceptional talent." So that was what Dr. John Sullivan said. Did you notice that in part that few companies ever end up with a surplus of this exceptional talent? Why is that? Because it's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and spend all of your time in the tactical thinking and not enough time just lifting up your head and deciding if you're actually going in the right direction. So what's the difference between tactical and strategic thinking? Strategic thinking is when you take time to focus on the larger goals and the direction of an organization or a project, or even your life. Where do you want to go? Why? How does this vision interrelate with shifting economic sands or world events? Where is the overall industry heading? When you create a strategy, you create a path that the organization can follow. And if you're not the CEO yet, then when they set a strategy, this gives you direction and all the other employees of the organization at all levels direction on where to go and where the company has decided to travel. So tactical thinking is not bad at all. In fact, it's also essential. But the tactical thinking and tactical actions are the steps and the processes that will eventually make the strategy a reality. So the thing is that sometimes people never lift up their head and look around, and then they see that they've spent so much time working on this one little piece of the puzzle that they didn't even know that the company stopped making carts that are pulled by horses and they've moved on to electric cars. I'm being a little facetious there, but companies do move on. And there's usually some percentage of the company who has a hard time transitioning. If you want to set yourself up as a person who is a high potential for an executive position, you need to spend some percentage of your time focused on strategic thinking. So for whatever you're in charge of now, think to yourself, am I leading this area of the company in a way that's leading it forward? Am I going in the direction the current CEO and the strategic documents are signaling? You can always think of ways to move further ahead and to innovate. So even if you think you're going in the right direction, take time to consider if you can do more or if things could be improved even more. I schedule this time on my calendar and I do my best to honor it. Sometimes you really do get busy and the tactical takes over, but the more time you take to think strategically, the more you'll be seen as a leader. You can tell the companies and even the people that spend their time in the day-to-day, and usually the people that are spending their time in the day-to-day keeping their head down, they don't pay attention to larger organizational goals, you can tell who they are. They spend time reacting, going from fire to fire, and they're usually annoyed because things keep changing. Maybe they get left out of important conversations or they feel completely ignored. But the way to get in the mix and to stay in the mix and then to start advancing to more senior levels is to align yourself to the current strategy and then actively demonstrate how your actions or the actions of your team are exponentially moving the company toward its vision. A company or a person who only focuses on tactical thinking will have a much higher chance of being seen as mediocre, maybe even subpar. The ones who are willing to learn the vision and the direction of the current strategy will be seen as leaders and will start to flow up. The way this shows up in job interviews is that when you're asked a question and you answer it in a very specific way, as if you are a subject matter expert on this exact widget, they can see that you might be the best widget maker they have ever seen. But when you answer the same question with strategic thinking involved, you spend a little time going into some pretty good detail about your area of expertise, so they definitely know you're an expert, but then you transition to your vision for how this simple innovation in the process could set up this company to lead the industry, because there's this one supply chain solution that it would drive, which would save the company 10 to 20% on raw materials, and then that would drive the ability to keep the product in the inventory, which would keep their customer base on a loyal, repeat business. Do you see the difference? In both responses, you're a tactical subject matter expert, but in one, you're just only talking about that one little widget, and that's the only thing you even think about. In the other, you have decided to connect your deep knowledge to the ways the company can solve an industry-wide problem or drive higher profit. So one point of caution, it's not really possible to think strategically too much, but only thinking strategically without good tactics to progress the plan forward will keep you in dreamer mode and nothing will be achieved. So you do have to take intense action, all the while making sure you're doing it in line with the current strategy. So what if you think you are spending too much time in tactical thinking? What can you do to change it? The good news is you 100% can improve your strategic thinking muscles. It doesn't take much time, mostly just some awareness and a willingness to learn and grow. Okay, so here's some actions you can take today. In the organization you're in now, or the one you most want to go work in the future, go to the company websites and download all the strategic documentation you can find. If it's a company you work for, they probably send you links with the vision statements, updated strategic plans, and annual goals. Take the time to read these and then note the key points of interest that you haven't noticed before and highlight any points that 100% apply to your department or team. Now do the same thing for your overall industry and maybe for a different industry as well. If you study what is happening in the industry that you are interested in working in and then also a different industry, you might get ideas from the other outside group that will help you improve things in your current industry. You see, so if you want to really understand your own industry, then sometimes you have to understand other competing or critical industries that help your industry continue to move forward. Once you've taken a look at your own company's vision statements and strategic plans, and then once you kind of understand the direction your overall industry and maybe some external industries are headed, then take time to brainstorm 5 to 10 things that your own department or your team could do starting today to be in better alignment with the current strategy. And then take time to actually talk to the current team you lead and discuss what you've been thinking about and the ideas that you have for moving toward this vision. Ask them if they have any ideas of their own. Remind them of what the vision is and kind of how you see the connection, so that they may have some different ways they see it. And then decide as a team that you are going to work to implement a few of these ideas that you came up together. If some of them need to be approved by a higher level, then prepare proposals to get this decision made, and always highlight why this is good for the organization and why it will result in a strategic win. And then definitely mark at least 1 hour or more if you can on your calendar every week or two to do nothing but think about the strategy and if your team is headed in the right way. And during this time is always a great time to think about new ideas that you can improve and other ways you and your team can innovate. Eventually, the more you do this, it will just become natural. And when you know you're going to an interview for another organization, this is the exact reason people always say to read about the company. It's not just so you know the name of the CEO, but it's also about doing research ahead of time, which will allow you to have an idea about how to discuss your vision for the position that is in alignment with the strategy of the company. You want to be able to tell them how you can help them move forward strategically while also demonstrating that you are definitely the technical expert they need. It's important that executives take time to step back from their day-to-day problems and do work that aligns their job to the company's strategy. If you want to be an executive, the sooner you teach yourself to do this, the more helpful it'll be as you get promoted to more successive positions. Okay, so from this day forward, make the decision that no one is going to tell you that you are too tactical again. Just like going to the gym and lifting the heavy weight, you can work your strategic muscles and become the person who's able to connect the tactical steps to the industry and the organizational strategy. You've got this. You can connect with me at Introverted Executive on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you're ready for executive coaching to help you achieve your biggest career goals, subscribe to my weekly Rise and Shine newsletter. There, you'll find out when my program opens for new clients, and you'll also receive weekly tips and activities to continue to make a bigger impact in your own powerful way. You'll find all the information and links down in the show notes. See you next week.